Hey, what's up? It's Coach PR, holding down for VladTV. Today's guest, special guest, former NBA player, Mr. Chris Herren. What's up, sir? How you doing, bro?
What's up, brother? Good to be here.
Did I say your name right?
Yeah.
I did, right?
Yeah,
What's going on, man? We finally get to sit down, right? After all this time, man.
It's been a couple of misses, but we're here now.
But we're here now, man. Everything's cool?
Yeah, all good.
All right, man. We just get right into it, man. From Fall River, Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
Tell us how it was growing up in Massachusetts at that time with your family.
You know, Fall River is a tough city. It's a blue-collar mill city. Thrived in the early 1900s on textiles and factories, and you know, at some point those go away. So it's a hard-nosed city, and it's you know, when I grew up, basketball was the thing, and you know, that's something that I was drawn into at a pretty early age. I tell people all the time, Durfee basketball was bigger than the Boston Celtics. You know, it's pre-social media, so you know, that was our show. You know, our show was to grow up and go watch these legends who were 16, 17 years old. But that kind of paved my way. You know, that kind of set the tone for me to aim. You know, like people grow up wanting to be Larry Bird. I grew up, I just wanted to play Durfee basketball.
How you didn't look at Larry Bird?
Nah, I didn't. I mean, and the reality is, in my life, I never looked at anything like that. And I don't know why. Right? It could be something psychological in me. You know, now hindsight, looking back with my drug addiction, I never thought I would make it. I never thought, like, from middle school to high school to college. Even in college, it took like a couple of years to say, hey, like you might have a chance at this.
But that's when it finally hit. So growing up in Massachusetts, did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, a big brother who was he was a legend in his own time. Back-to-back state champion, undefeated 2 years in a row. You know, when you grow up a Durfee basketball player, you play in front of 4,000 people.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, season ticket holders, you know,
what?
People travel. Yeah, man, it was intense, and my brother kind of laid out the path for me.
Okay, as a kid, you played for was it Milliken League?
Yeah.
Right? Your dad coached.
Yeah.
How was that, you know, having your dad coach? Because I coached my son, and it's like we were always going at it. How was it with your dad?
Yo, it's deep. You know, it's deep. You know, it's what's right or wrong, right? Like he raised me to be.
Right.
You know, like he raised me to be. And you know, with that comes consequence. With that comes internal conflict in your relationship. You know, but without him, I would have never got to where I went.
Right.
You know, I'll tell you this. You know, my son is 24, and Christopher. And I also have a son, Drew, who's 14, and my daughter's in the middle. I won't coach them. I'm not built for it. Like I don't want them to see that side of me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I've shown it. I've shown that side of me. And they don't like it. You know, they don't like it. And I'd rather let someone else show that side.
Right.
You know, than
And what side is that? Like, what do you say?
Just that thing, you know, that
Right.
comes out of you.
Right.
Like,
is it intense coaching?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, you know, I know this from I was a boy. You know, like you come home winning, like you come home winning, and you know, I don't want my kids to see that, and I say this, I don't want people to take this the wrong way, but just see that animal in me.
right.
You know what I mean?
What, the winning animal? I'm trying to.
Yeah. It's a winning animal, but it's also
can that
like
be a good thing though. Like,
no doubt,
right?
and they get that.
Right.
They're my son,
Right.
you know. But I don't know. I struggle with it now because you got to understand something. I shot heroin for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've been sober for 14 years, so you know that internal battle. What's right? What's wrong?
Okay.
You know,
Right.
It's hard.
Right.
And as a dad, it's hard to identify the line when it comes to my children on how far to take that line, how far to move that line.
Right. So did you see that with your dad?
No doubt.
Right.
Yeah, my dad, he raised us to be, right? Like, you got to be that guy.
Right.
You know, but again, like, I grew up in alcoholism, addiction. Like, my father struggles, man. Struggles. You know, my dad, he's the greatest man I know, but, you know, he's gonna die because of his drinking. You know?
Sorry about that.
Yeah. And
Did you see that while he was coaching you?
I didn't know what it was.
Right.
You know, I just knew Miller Lights. You know, I just knew of Miller Lights. And in hindsight, you look back on some of those days, some of those moments, and you wonder, would it have been different? You know, would his line have been different if he wasn't battling that? Right. But I'll say this, you know, my dad taught me a lesson. I played in the McDonald's All-Star game right at St. John's, and I was terrible. I was shook. Place is packed. It's a New York theme. I wasn't ready for it. Like, and in all reality, like, I'm not an all-star guy. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not my personality.
Right.
I want to get ugly with people I'm close to.
Right.
So I was terrible. And I left that game crying, man. I was like 17 years old. I was like, I just embarrassed myself on national TV.
Yeah, All-American game.
All-American game. And I had my next game was back in the day, it was called it was in D.C. You played against the D.C. All-Stars. The Dapper Dan, like those type of...
Right.
And he put me in the car. I said, I'm not playing in that game, Dad. You know, the Capital Classic. I'm not playing in it. I'm going home. I'm not going to set myself up again. You know, he snatched me, put me in a car, and we drove. And, you know, I had a phenomenal game in that game.
Oh, so he took you to the game. He was like, no, you're going to play.
Yeah, you're going to play in this game.
Yeah.
And you know, those are the things I remember, right? Those are the moments of his line, you know, when it stuck with me.
Right. It's good memories, right? Okay, so back in high school in Durfee.
Yep.
Your family, you got some family Hall of Famers there.
Mm-hmm.
Your grandfather played there, right?
Yep.
Your older brother played it. Like, how was that now, playing for them, knowing that your family, like, Durfee royalty?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I knew. Durfee was the entertainment. You know, Durfee sports was the entertainment in that city for many years, right? I mean, shit. There were 3 channels on TV, you know, 12 channels. People went out to watch. You know, and growing up, I heard stories of my grandfather, my uncles, my dad, but I witnessed my brother.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I had a front row seat to that. So I knew what was coming. I knew what was waiting for me.
Right.
You know, and the reality is he made that road easier, but he also made it tougher. You know,
right, because you had to fill in those big shoes.
I had to fill in those shoes.
Right. So, okay, so now you're at Durfee,
and
then you started drinking and smoking as a freshman. What made you get into doing that?
It was probably before that, right? It was just the culture. Like, you know, it was people went out on weekends and smoked a little, drank a little. You know, there was, you know, when I was in high school, we could hang out in bars and, you know, be 16, 17 years old, just chilling in bar rooms in Fall River. It was just part of the culture. And, you know, I say this all the time, the scariest thing about addiction, nobody knows who has it. So when you're a 17-year-old kid sitting on that bar stool drinking, thinking, yo, this is life, this is the life, you have no idea what's coming.
It's coming ahead, right?
You know what I mean?
Right.
And to me, that's the scariest thing about it is at 17, 16 years old, 14, 15, blowing, drinking, I had no clue what was coming.
What, because I see that you started doing acid too in high school. Like, now you go to the next level after the weed and drinking. How did that play, you know?
Psychedelics, mushrooms, acid, mescaline. I wasn't afraid of it. You know, I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't afraid of the drinking, the smoking, the hallucinations.
Was it a girl that? What made you get like
Nah,
doing
it was
stuff
just,
like?
it was just my
friends?
homeboys. It was just our little crew.
Right.
Yeah, I just wasn't afraid of it. And you know, you look back, right, and you say, you know, here I am. I'm this kid who has tons of promise, and I'm doing everything in my power to lose it. You know, to break it down. You know, kids who have it laid out the way it was laid out for me, you know, aren't tripping on acid at 4 o'clock in the morning at 16.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, most kids, that's not even in their vocabulary yet.
Right. I mean, you could probably get, weed or probably some
Yeah,
beer,
no
right?
doubt, no doubt.
But then you go to acid, cocaine, right? Did you say cocaine?
Cocaine, acid, all of it. You know, I mean, cocaine came at BC.
Okay.
Cocaine didn't come in high school.
Okay, high school. In high school, you scored 2,073 points, the most in school history, while doing acid and everything. So people will look at him and say, shit, I could still get high and smoke weed if he did it like that.
That's the worst part about my documentary. The worst part about my documentary is some people say, yo, he balled while he was messed up. And I don't want that to be. You know what I mean? Like, I worked really hard to ball. I put a lot of hours, a lot of time in the gym to get to that, to achieve that type of success. And in high school and college, I had moments where I broke. I had moments where I went on a run for days partying. You know, but for the most part, I was dialed in. You know, for the most part, when I was dialed in. You have to be dialed in. But I had moments that I just ran away. And again, that's stage 1, stage 2 addiction.
Right, still the early stage.
I don't know what it is, but I'm going to it. And, you know, and the reality is the older I got, especially in college, I would go out and people wouldn't want to be with me at night. You know, like once it got to 2, 3 in the morning, dudes were like,
yeah, we out.
Yo, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow.
So, do you think
Yeah.
that if you didn't get high,
Yeah.
you would have still scored the 2,073 points?
Yeah.
Or maybe more?
Maybe more. I didn't, at that time, like I can honestly say that today's basketball player is different, right? Like I didn't have a trainer.
You did this without training.
You know, yeah, like I didn't have a trainer. Like these kids have everything laid out for them now.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up where 5 is better than 1, right? Like it's about the team, not about the individual. So like the only place I knew to get better was my driveway. Like that's the only place I had in my life where I could get better, you know, was in my driveway, balling in my driveway. Right. So, you know, there were definitely times in high school where I lacked focus, discipline, which ultimately, in hindsight, hurt me, you know, hurt my game. But 2,073, whatever, I mean, it's still a lot to put up.
A lot of numbers.
Yeah, you got to put in them.
And then your senior year, you were named the Boston Globe and Gatorade Player of the Year. You still didn't think that you had it at that moment?
No, I didn't. Like, I don't know why I didn't dream big. I don't know why. I don't know if it was because of my childhood. Like, I just didn't dream big. Like, it was just like, that was enough at the moment, you know? And being Player of the Year in Massachusetts, to me, honestly, like, probably in 7th grade, that was meant to be. I was gonna get that. Like, that was something that
so it was like nothing to you, like after.
No, I was gonna get that.
Yeah.
You know, and then, but like I never envisioned. Like I never envisioned playing at higher levels. It was just who was in front of me.
So now you say you played for McDonald's All-American team. Who else was on that team with you?
Felipe
Lopez,
who I adore.
St.
Right?
John's.
I mean, he's one of the best dudes I've met in this game. Kareem Reed, who I just did a virtual thing for the kids that he's teaching and coaching.
Nice. That's 2 New York guys right there.
Zendon Hamilton, New York kid.
Yeah.
Donald Foyle, brilliant mind. Trajan Langdon, Antoine Walker, and sadly, you know, Lorenzen Wright, who, you know, he was murdered.
Right. Was it right? Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. You played with Antoine Ward. Didn't you play with Antoine in
Yeah,
Boston?
I played with him at the Celtics too.
Celtics, right?
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna get to that. Okay, so now you did you played in the McDonald's game.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
I got tight. I got tight, and again, it wasn't my personality. Like some people love that all-star vibe. Like you watch the all-star game to like a Luka.
Right.
He's not that, like, that's not like his thing.
Right.
Some people love that stage.
Yeah.
Some people don't.
Right.
Like it just, I knew at a young age that wasn't my stage.
Right.
Like I'd rather be in a little battle with people who I've been battling with than, walk
Is it the lights or is it?
It's not the lights.
Or is it because, all right, say you're named the All-Star. Isn't that like an achievement
It
for
is.
you, right?
It's a great achievement.
So you didn't take that in or you didn't take the lights in?
Listen, I think at the time, I loved the lights. Listen, I played a lot of basketball, and there's guys who run from the lights.
A lot of guys run
You
from
know
the
what I
lights.
mean? It's when the lights turn on,
Like
they're
roaches.
gone. So I love the lights. And so it wasn't the lights, it was more the atmosphere. Like I wasn't that guy. I wasn't that guy to be like, I'm that guy.
They had you as one of the central figures in a book for Durfee High School basketball.
Mm-hmm.
That was Four Rivers Dreams.
Yep.
How did you take that when you were in that book?
Four Rivers Dreams is written by Bill Reynolds. Bill Reynolds, I've said this countless times. God put him in my life, and I'll thank God for the rest of my life, because at 15 years old, when I was introduced to him and he was like, I'm going to write a book about you, he was a stranger. He was just this journalist who, I was here and he was there. And through that process, he became a figure in my life that was always stability. Like he was an uncle, he was a brother, he was a cousin, he was a friend, he was a father. Whatever I needed him to be, he was. And he's a legend. He's a legend journalist. Sadly, he's not at his best right now. He's sick. But God, he gave me someone special in Bill Reynolds. He gave me someone special with Four Rivers Dreams.
You were you turned down a lot of offers.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky, Duke, and played at Boston College.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because you wanted to play home? Or because those are big schools, like Duke and Kentucky, compared to Boston College, big school too.
No doubt.
But you're talking about Duke.
The real schools who I was in on at the end was Syracuse, who I visited, Wisconsin, who was Stu Jackson at the time, the Van Gundy. Florida, they just played in the Final Four. The Kentuckys of the world, the Billy Donovans, the Rick Pittinos, like they come at you early and say, are you in or not? And at 16 years old, I wasn't ready to commit to that.
Right.
I think staying at home was safe, yet unsafe. It was one of those things, like, if I could do it over. I remember I was sitting in the living room with John Calipari, who was the head coach of UMass at the time. And Coach Cal said to me, and I believe to my parents, I think Christopher should go to prep school for a year. I think he should leave high school, go to prep school, and then walk into the college world. And I took that as such an insult. I was like, yo.
Why did he say that?
Yeah, I think maybe he had some wisdom, like he's not ready to be in that world yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in hindsight,
he saw something.
In hindsight, I should have. I should have went away to a boarding school and just learned how to live and be away and adjust, adapt. But Coach Cal was the only coach that told me that. And I was so offended by it, but 20, 30 years later, man, you see the wisdom that he had, and I wish I listened.
They put a lot of pressure on you in Sports Illustrated as soon as you went into Boston College.
Mm-hmm.
and your possible success?
Sports Illustrated was a big thing, man. It was me, Felipe, Ray Allen. AI was just walking in. He was already there, a freshman at Georgetown. The title of the magazine was The Big East is Back. And, they gave me the 2-fold in the middle of the magazine, like the big picture. And I'm at Faneuil Hall, like just shooting a jump shot after, jumping off a trampoline for a couple of hours. So that was a big deal. That was a moment, to be 18 years old, featured in Sports Illustrated and part of the culture of Big East is back.
I see. When you returned, now you're at Boston College, and you go back to the dorm one day after practice, and your roommate has 2 girls, and they're snorting cocaine. Is this your freshman?
Freshman year.
Freshman year. Did they convince you at that time?
They didn't really have to twist my arm that much.
Right.
You know what I mean? I would never. The crowd that I was in that dorm room, they didn't have to convince. I was afraid, right? Like I grew up with Len Bias, like knowing that cocaine took his life. But again, it shows you the vulnerability of a 18-year-old kid who's in Sports Illustrated hooping in the Big East. And like, now you're going to step into the world of cocaine. And what happened to me with cocaine, and only people who have done cocaine understand this, cocaine is a truth serum. It keeps you up. It breaks you down, and it allows you to be honest. So those nights, smoking cigarettes, drinking beers, banging lines of cocaine, your guts come out, and I like that.
Right.
That was, for me, as crazy as this sounds, there was a therapeutic touch to that.
To that, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Like letting out what you were holding in all that time.
Yeah.
Sounds crazy, but it's real.
Yeah, and you wake up the next morning, you're like, what'd I do, man? You know what I mean? I told too much. But hey, it has that, and that was appealing to me at that age.
While at Boston College, who was some of the greats that you played against?
At BC?
Yeah.
So BC, I played against, my first game was Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I don't know him, never played against him, never heard of him.
Who was it again?
Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So I'm coming down and I'm in the second half. I got like 14, 15, 16, whatever it is. And I go up for a shot and I break my wrist. And that was my first game at BC. I shattered it. I was in surgery the next day. So there went the season. And now I'm 18, no hoop, recovering from surgery with, a college lifestyle.
That was that was your first year.
Yeah.
You played 21 minutes in that game.
Yeah, that's it. 21 minutes I lasted at BC.
Okay. So within 3 months of your injury, you failed like 2 more drug tests.
Yeah.
You had marijuana, cocaine, and then you get expelled from the university. So you didn't even get to shine or do anything while there.
No, because the drug testing policy at that time was a little different. And they told me because of the 3 failed drug tests that I was now suspended a year. So here I was, I sat out a year because of an injury, and now I'm gonna get healthy, and I have to sit out another year because of my drug tests. So that's when I made a decision, not to be honest, but to kind of run. Like, if I'm gonna sit out, I'll go sit out somewhere else. And again, you look at your life and you rewind. If I settled, got the help I needed, sat out that year at BC, things might have been different.
Right. So then you go to Fresno. The great Jerry Tarkanian.
Yeah.
How was that?
Jerry Tarkanian was...
And how did that happen, actually?
So he had just left UNLV. He was going home to coach at Fresno State. And he called me and was like,
Just out of the blue?
Yeah, I know you're in trouble. I know you've been in trouble.
Yeah.
But I want to give you a shot. Like, you worked really hard for this. And what's crazy is as I was standing on the corner outside, Larry Johnson just walked right past me. And I saw him real quick, and I was on the phone, I tried to get his attention because we share that. We share that same bond of Coach Tark.
Right.
Like Coach Tark, when you play for him, it's inside of you. Like,
Well, you saw Larry Johnson where?
right here,
Oh, just now?
right on the street, walking
Get out
right
of here.
Yeah,
you didn't see Larry Johnson walking out?
yeah.
You said Larry Johnson?
LJ. He
Grandma
walked
Mom.
right, walked right past me,
Yeah.
right, and walked up to that Starbucks. Yeah,
Wow.
man.
So yeah, because he played at UNLV with
He did.
with
He
Tark,
was.
right.
He is.
That was a great
he
team
is
too,
Coach
UNLV.
Tark, right? Like,
Yeah.
Grandma Ma.
Yeah.
He.
So Coach had a history of actually helping out troubled players.
Mhm.
And for you, how was it? Actually playing for him?
It was tough. It keeps coming, right? So you learn. See, at BC was a little bit of a different culture, right? They're willing to kind of cultivate. They're kind of looking at you and projecting you 2-3 years and then recruiting under you. At Fresno State, man, they just keep coming. Like it's Kenny Bruner from Georgetown. It's Ray Alston. It's, like Courtney Alexander from UVA. Like, they just keep coming. So your job, you learn real quick that, like, it's temporary.
Right.
Like, it's real temporary. Like,
You gotta get it in and do what you can.
it's just temporary because there's people waiting and there's people that want it. So, and I learned that as much as I adored Coach Tark and loved Coach Tark, you're really never good enough, right? As a coach, like, you're looking for the next guy who's going to add 4 more points to your game, So he gave me an amazing platform and let me be me and did everything for me. Trust me. Like, I spoke at his funeral in the Thomas and Mack Center in front of 10,000 people. And I would go back there in a heartbeat, just anything for him. But that's when I kind of picked up on that this is temporary.
So Rolling Stone actually featured you again.
Yep.
More pressure?
More pressure, different type of pressure. They kind of came with the spin of, more of my lifestyle than my game, mixed in.
Right.
Because of kind of the baggage I carried.
Right.
But yeah,
So
listen.
it's definitely had more pressure because you had to prove them wrong, right?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, Rolling Stone was no joke. When Rolling Stone comes into town back then in the 90s, right? Like, Rolling Stone might not be Rolling Stone like they used to be. But when Sports Illustrated and Rolling Stone in the 90s come into town, like, that's Rolling Stone.
Right. All right. So now you got into altercation at a bar, a local bar, while you were there. What happened?
Fights, alcohol,
This was like the first year. So
yeah, I was
right?
there. I just listen. I can say it as best as I can remember it. It was there was a lot of friction in that club, and things just got a little bumpy. And alcohol's never been my friend. You know what I mean? Like, my wife will tell you, alcohol, it doesn't plan on making me nice.
Right.
And I was allergic to it at 19 years old. And I just remember, things popped off. I ended up in a parking lot. And next thing you know, I was surrounded by SWAT teams. And that was kind of my introduction.
So what coach said to you after that?
Coach wasn't happy, but there's a guy, Jack Furtick, who used to coach with Coach Tark. He was kind of like the general manager of the team. He used to tell us on picture day, smile, because that's the picture they're gonna use when you get arrested.
And then you get to work.
Yeah.
You got 4 games. You finished the season off averaging 17.5. I think the last 4 games you dropped like 31 points per game. Now you put in the work, right? Any more pressure on you after that now? Or you was like...
The pressure was internal, right? The pressure, and I say internal in a way that it kind of stayed within the South and North gym of Fresno State because you had real dudes who were coming, man. Like, you had Willie Farley, Nick Irvin, Rafa, Kenny, Trey Folks. I mean, you had all Americans that were constantly showing up. You know, people wanted to play for Coach Tark. People wanted to be in that world. Yeah. And then people needed that world, right? So oftentimes we got guys who, you know, went to Georgetown or went to Cal and it didn't work out for them. And they feel like they can get it at Fresno because, you know, the way I kind of teed it up and set off there. But I had a coach, and his name was John Welch. And in fairness, too, is Jerry Tarkanian's son, Danny. Both of my assistant coaches took me under their wing. And it was the first time in my life that I was taught how to get better individually. Like, I didn't know. Like, the commitment.
Right.
I had no idea. At 19 years old, like, I had no idea that I was supposed to be in a gym at 5 o'clock in the morning working on my handle.
Shots up, yeah.
You know, and I had no idea after the hour of ball handle, I'm supposed to go in and shoot for an hour and then go to class and come back. So that year I sat out, I was dialed. Like, I was like, if you look at it, and it, you know, obviously it's 20 years ago, but if you look at me in 1996, Fresno State sophomore, my body, it's vastly different than 1999. Like, I was way more prepared to walk into that world. Right. And that's why 17 and a half a game and Rolling Stone came into town, you know?
So on November 25th, you failed another drug test. It's after that. And you failed a couple of other drug tests after that. What happened?
Partying, right? Like, it's tough being you 24/7.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. You know what I mean? Like, I have so much, I have a different vantage point now because I have recovery. But like, when you don't have recovery, like, being you 24/7 can be a monster. And I didn't know how to be that, you know? So again, it wasn't an everyday thing. It was like, it came in waves. And
when it did come, it just came like...
When it came, it came. And you know, testing positive at Fresno. Fresno was by far ahead of themselves as far as helping their athletes with substance use and mental health. Like, they were way ahead of the curve. And, you know, where most colleges, it was punitive. We're going to punish you, learn your lesson. Fresno was going to help you, and we're going to teach you how to be able to manage this.
But you had to admit it first, and that's why you did the press conference and everything. So you had to admit to yourself, which is one of the first steps, right?
No doubt.
So it's admitting, right?
But it's hard, man. It's hard at 21 years old to say I'm gonna. Yeah. And that's the narrative around drugs, right? Like, when you tell a 19-year-old kid or a 20-year-old kid, listen, you're an addict. Like, instead of saying we just identified like something that you're allergic to, like it really hurts you, like it should be like, you know, I got it.
Right.
Instead, it's a punishment.
Right.
Like, so I always looked at it as a punitive thing, even though, you know, I was failing drug tests and going to rehab and press conferences. It was like, man, I got caught.
But how was it, like, at that age, you had the press conference and tell the, you know, national TV that I'm an addict?
It was tough. It was tough because, you know, I was hooping. I was looking forward to that season. And again, it was tough because I have family that, you know, people don't understand. Family comes with you, you know, family feels you, you know, and I've learned that now that I have children, right? Like, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. Right. And, you know, like, there's a time in my life where I was unhappy, and I knew my mom and my dad had to feel that. You know,
were they with you at the press conference?
My mom was with me at the press conference. Yeah, my mom was with me. You know, that's the thing. Like, and I'm sure we'll get to that, but my mom never saw me sober. You know, she never got that shot. I never gave her that gift. You know, like, she died from cancer at a young age, and she knew how sick I was. You know, I was in the middle of a brutal heroin addiction when she was diagnosed. So I never gave her that gift of seeing her child happy.
She sees it now.
Totally.
She sees it.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not gonna make me cry. So after going to rehab,
Yeah.
you returned to the team January 98. What's the forecast now for you going back?
Forecast is kind of, redeem reputation, right? Like kind of put a body of work together that gives you some stability and some character. So I jumped right back into it and started hooping.
They did a was it like
documentary,
special
Between the Madness on Fox.
Right.
It was a national Fox.
Yeah.
Not
the local Fox, the
not
national.
regional Fox.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So I believe, and I might be wrong, but we might have been that crew left, I believe, Michael Jordan on his baseball documentary and came right to us.
Mm.
And we were kind of like the first or second reality show. And it was a reality show.
Right.
There was a lot of reality.
Yeah, because you had to talk about your on off, everything.
Oh, no doubt. They witnessed everything. They were, it's cameras follow.
How did you feel about that? Like,
it was tough for me. And that's why.
Now you had to make sure you're clean.
Yeah.
Still, it's like, I'm not partying. I'm not showing that side of me. Like,
yeah, and I don't know if I ever faked it that good. You know what I mean? It's
because the demon is still there.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. It's there and it's waiting.
Mm-hmm. And you had Mike Wallace interview,
which was dope.
The legendary Mike Wallace.
So they told me Mike Wallace came into town 60 Minutes, and they're like, Chris, 60 Minutes is in town, and then 60 Minutes wants, and it might be true, but the legend of 60 Minutes is that they've been in town for 3 weeks already. Mm. They do their work. So
right before they even got there, they're there. Before
you even know, they're already researching. So when you sit down with 60 Minutes, just know that they know the answers. And I remember, I don't know if it was Coach Tark or it was my athletic director who said, we don't want anybody sitting down with Mike Wallace. No players. And I was like, I'm sitting down with Mike Wallace.
Yeah.
I have a chance. That man's a living legend.
Yeah.
So Mike Wallace was cool with me.
Right.
Fresno State, he wasn't so cool with. You know what I mean?
Right.
But with me, he was cool. Like we sat there, we talked about JFK, we talked about, the hostages in Iran, and he just dropped it.
Yeah.
And everything he's been through. So and when I hooped in the NIT at Madison Square Garden, he came.
He came to the game?
Yeah.
So did he speak to you about your issues too?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. That's what it was all about. It was about my issues and the reality show and kind of what we were going through under the microscope at Fresno. Okay,
so you finished the season strong, Fresno State. You go to NIT, like you said. Actually, you played at the Garden. But you guys lost, right?
Yeah, we lost in the championship.
Later in press conference, you announced that you were going to stay at Fresno State for another year.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you want to leave?
I wanted to win. I didn't win in high school. I didn't win enough, right? And I try to tell kids this all the time, like, obviously, you win games in the NBA, but that's nothing like winning games in high school. You win games in college, that's nothing like winning in high school. I didn't win in high school, so I wanted to win a little.
Right.
And sadly, you look at the roster of Fresno State and you see NBA players, All-Americans, and we don't win. We don't win. We can't put it together. And I was part of that. I was part of that instability.
But you did beat Duke.
Yeah. No.
I
balled against Duke. Duke beat us, but I had a big one against Duke in Alaska.
The Great Alaska Shootout, yeah.
But we played in some big games and we won some big games. But, the culture of players who are dialed in, they keep winning, man.
I'm sorry, yeah, you did lose 93-82.
Yeah. I mean, listen.
But you dropped 29 on them.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big game. They were, I don't know if they were number one in the country at the time, but, they were just big, man. Like, that's the difference, right? Like, I tell people all the time, like, you play against a Division II, Division III school in preseason, right? They come into town and you give them a game, and they're in the game for the first 30 minutes until your bigs wear them out. Yeah. Your bigs wear them out. Like, Division II, Division III don't have 7-footers. And their bigs wore us out.
1999. So, Coach retired?
Yeah.
While you were there?
No,
right after you were there.
1 season after.
And then you left before he retired. Yeah. And you entered the draft. Mm-hmm. How did you feel that entering the draft?
I was nervous, right? I think once you enter the draft, you're putting yourself out there. You're setting yourself up to not be drafted. Mm-hmm. And with my history, nobody knew, like,
what they were going to get, if they were going to get the demon or they were going to get the baller.
You didn't know what teams were willing to take that chance, right? So,
because you averaged 15 points, 5.
And 6. I had to. So if you look at my college numbers, right, my points dropped over time, and there's multiple reasons, right? I think I was way less focused the longer I stayed there, but also I had to switch my game up. I had to prove that I could distribute. I had to prove that I could handle the ball, run an offense, throw the ball ahead and let people score and not be the scorer. Because, I mean, I'm 6'2". I'm not going to go in the NBA and just start putting up buckets, right. Especially that NBA.
Right.
That NBA was guards post you up. Yeah. You know what I mean? And bigs got the ball. You run through the bigs. Yeah. So my size, that wasn't really doing it.
Was in your senior year, was Rafer still there?
Yeah.
He was still there? He's from Queens too.
Yeah.
I just had to mention that.
Rafer.
Skip to my Lou.
Skip to my Lou.
How was playing with him? Like, because he's a street legend back in New York.
He is a street legend. And I will say this. I don't think I've ever played with a more committed person. I don't think I've ever been around someone more disciplined and never seen anybody chase it the way he chased it. Our personalities didn't mix at that time, right? Like we were just from two different worlds, too far apart. But, you grow up, meaning me, and you look back and you appreciate, what he was going through and what he was willing to do at that time to get where he wanted to go.
Right.
I didn't have that.
Yeah, he had that.
He had that.
Okay, so now Denver Nuggets, second round, 33 pick overall. How much was your rookie contract?
Oh, nothing.
I'm going right to it. How much was your rookie contract?
Oh gosh, I think back at that time it was like $333,000. Yeah.
Not bad for a 33 pick back then.
Yeah, but listen, it's an NBA lifestyle, right? Like, thank God I had veterans like McDice and McLeod and Rogers and Jones and Van Exel, who, Chauncey Billups. Like, I had great
that Nuggets team was,
veterans, who always looked out for you. Because when you're staying in Ritz-Carltons and Four Seasons and eating in specific places, like $303,000 can go quick. Yeah. After taxes, it's, and after your agent and setting up your life, there's not a lot left to spend. Right. And, I'll never forget it. I got into a card game and Boo-Ray, and I got booed. And I had to match the pot, and the pot was big. I was on the plane, and the pot was big, and I didn't have that type of dough to match that pot.
Was with the team?
Yeah. And I got in way over my head.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even have been at that table.
Right.
Right, I'm looking at.
Who's at the table?
Van Exel, Bryant Stith, George McLeod, me.
And these guys
have been in the NBA for 10, 12 years, right? Yeah. And I shouldn't be at that table.
You're playing with big boy money over there.
Yeah. And I didn't have big boy money. So I lost, and I lost big. And the veteran on that team took care of me and covered the loss for me.
Who covered your loss?
Nick Van Exel.
Van Exel?
Yeah.
Who took you under the wing? Did anybody take you under the wing?
Probably George McLeod. I don't know if you know George McCloud. George McCloud played at Florida State. As tough as they get.
Yeah.
You know, like George McCloud kind of took me under his wing. Popeye Jones watched me from afar. And Antonio McDice like let me follow him in a sense. You know, like I just had real souls, man, like just real good.
So whose bag did you carry? Because you're a rookie now.
Yeah, no. Bag? What's interesting is we didn't do that.
Really?
Yeah, there was none of that. For some reason,
stuff?
No, there was no hazing, no like, you know, you're the rookie, you got to do this or do that.
You didn't even have to treat for dinner? Nothing back then?
Nothing.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
Was that was the NBA or that was just Denver? Because it seems like this was the
I think that's different. I think certain teams, you know, run that.
Okay.
Those guys didn't. Those guys, I mean, I'm telling you, man, like when I got traded to the Celtics, I cried. Like not because I was happy going to the Celtics, that I was leaving
the family,
these guys.
Right.
You know, like it was the first time. That was probably the first time in my life that I loved basketball, like loved it, and that's kind of what they gave me there.
But Denver, they kept a close eye on you.
Yeah,
they didn't let you go out to the club and everything. It was like, so why did they trade you? Was it anything that happened, or was it because of your performance? Because you averaged 3 points and two assists.
Yeah,
13.
I mean, I was at the end. You know, I was at the end of the bench, and you never know if you're going to get in. You know, there were periods of times I was on the injured reserve list. Mm-hmm. You know, back then there was no G League.
Right.
So you were always part of the team.
Was it D League back then?
No, there wasn't even. It was just the CBA. It was called the CBA back then. And it's tough. It's just a different role, right? It's a different role. But I think I had guys that said, listen, we're going to help you, kid. You know, like, we're going to look out for you. Like, we want you to succeed.
Right.
And, you know, those guys, you know, when I got sober, I hunted them down. You know what I mean? Because in 1999, the mission wasn't accomplished.
What they were trying to do.
But in 2008, you know, when I got to where I was supposed to be, they were the people who I called.
Right.
You know, guys like that.
Well, you went home for the summer, new baby, and you didn't have any mentors at the time, right? So who introduced you to the OxyContin?
Kid who I grew up with.
I mean, I didn't want the name. I was just saying.
Yeah.
Who introduced you?
No
Like the cops, right?
No names.
Who introduced you? But no.
Nah, kid I grew up with introduced me to it. But listen, I'm not gonna, you know, there were times in high school I would take a Vicodin, a couple of Vicodins, a couple of perks, right? Like it was part of the fabric of our social circle. Like drink a couple of beers, pop a couple of Vikes, a couple of perks, and go party for the night. And then all of a sudden this OxyContin came out, and I'd never heard of it, right? And he told me, he's like, listen, this is the real deal. It just hit the streets, and
this time your dude.
I'm in between.
He knew you were in the NBA. He knew you was in the league.
Yeah. And I was in between.
Was this your friend?
Yeah.
So-called friend at the time, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. I like for instance, I didn't even know what an opiate was, you know, in 1999. So he introduced me to this thing, and it just crushed me. And I say this, you know, like there's kind of two people in this world. People who have surgery and post-op, they love it. They love post-op. And there's people who hate post-op.
Right.
There's people who hate the feeling of, you know, Demerol or morphine. Get sick to their stomach. I don't want that stuff. And then there's the people who embrace it. And I was blessed with that curse.
Yeah, because you were spending $25,000 a month in it.
Yeah, a ridiculous amount. I mean, and it happened quick. Like it happened so quick. And then what happens is you spend that type of money to hide it. Like that's what becomes it. It's not even about it. Now it's about hiding it. And it's about keeping that secret away from people who love you. Like I remember I went to the same 7-Eleven. The same ATM, and I remember putting my little card in there from Payne Weber, and so much comfort because the amount
of money that was in there.
And I remember going back and taking the last $50. There goes the comfort.
Wow. Wow, you just saw it like from
big
just...
figures. I walked up to that ATM, I'm like, I got this. You know, when you're going up to an ATM 200-300 out of whack every day, multiple times a day, you know, it just keeps coming.
Yeah.
But I remember when I pulled into that 7-Eleven, different car, different time, different life, and it told me I couldn't take anymore. Like I remember both days.
Did you want to get more high or just like...
I mean, you know, like, it's a tough world to live in, man. You know, like I think people understand it a little more today because it's kind of part of the culture now. Like, people aren't afraid to talk about drugs and addiction. But in 2004, like, heroin addicts weren't talked about. Like, when I overdosed, people weren't talking about that. Like, the headline of the Boston Globe was Boston Herald was in my Celtics uniform, and it said, "What a shame." And today you couldn't shame someone that way.
Right.
You know, kind of that's the progress we've made around this.
Yeah. You
can't shame people for being sick like that.
Right.
You know, like,
a lot of people don't know it's a sickness, right? They were younger, we were looking at it like you're just a drug addict. That's what we told.
I left my kids that morning. I left my children. You know, Christopher was 5, Samantha was 2. I went to Dunkin' Donuts. I would come back into that house every day with stuff for my children. But in between that, I would meet my guy. And just that day, like, I pushed it through and I went out. You know, I just went out. And that's when my whole world changed. And that's when I changed everybody who loved me's world. Like, you know, sometimes you look at it from your lens, like, my whole world just changed. What I wasn't able to see at that time is everybody who loved me is now on this ride with me.
Right.
And that's the thing, like, I was a father on that cement, you know, when they were bringing me back.
Do your kids see you in that state?
No. They saw me, you know, I don't think they were old enough to understand
what it was, but they saw it, yeah.
Yeah, but Christopher and Samantha, Chris and Sam, 9 and 7, when I got sober, they lived in 2 different worlds. You know, what it was like from 0 to 9 and 9 to 18, it's 2 different worlds.
Yeah.
You know?
Crazy. Oh, so now you get traded to the Celtics.
Yeah.
On that roster, you have Antoine Walker, you, who's Paul Pierce on there. Anybody take a hold of you? Because that was
young team, different vibe. You know, like, Coach Pitino was there. He was the guy. Yeah. You know, I played at Denver with Dan Issel, who was kind of more like, it's all of ours. Yeah. And in Boston, it was Coach Pitino's, and it was his ship.
How was it being coached by Coach Pitino?
He's tough.
He's like a low budget Pat Riley. They used to say the way they dress.
But I'll tell you though, nobody works harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like I watched him as a pro, and you know, I have the utmost respect for him because of the work that he put in to being a professional. But that team was young. Paul, I got there and Paul just had gone through that altercation
and stabbing.
When he got stabbed.
Yeah.
I got there like 5 days later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were going through it over there.
Yeah.
So now, but this is your dream team. This team that, right? Yeah. Team you grew up watching.
Not ready. I didn't want it.
You didn't want it at that time?
I was so, people don't understand. Like, I am looking at a cliff. And it's one thing to fall off the cliff in Denver. It's another thing to fall off the cliff in front of family, in front of your hometown.
Super pressure.
Yeah, but
and now you're already hooked on it.
Yeah,
right?
so it wasn't even a pressure of hoop. Like, please, I would do anything to get back just having the pressure of hoop.
Right.
It was the pressure of knowing that I'm a drug addict.
Yeah, because you admitted that you were like
I'm a drug
junkie
addict.
right there.
You know, 100%. I'm a drug addict. I am sick, and I am supposed to now be at the top of my game, playing in front of all my people, and have great success. You know, that's no joke. And listen, and here's the deal. It's the NBA. It's not college. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not Stephon Marbury. I'm not Allen Iverson. Like, I'm a guy who, like, coach looks down the bench and's like, yo, come on, give him a breather.
Right.
You know, so I'm coming in for Kenny Anderson and the Celtics for a couple of minutes. So I got a couple of minutes to do my thing. You know, it's a different world.
Take us back when Coach Pitino tells you you're going to start. Yeah. Chris, how does he say? You start and you're going to start today. Get ready.
Get ready, because you're playing. You know, and he throws me into that lineup. I wish I remembered. Like, that's how crazy it is. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, people talk, like, I heard dudes talking about Shaq and Barkley the other night, talking about Shaq's first points in the NBA.
Yeah.
I don't know my first point.
You don't remember your first point at all?
No. Listen, my world was so dark. Like, there was this impending doom. Like, I wasn't even paying attention to hoop. Like, I was out there. You know, I mean, I'm playing the NBA. I got, you know, I'm dribbling up. You know, I got Vernon Maxwell. I got all the backups at that time that I'm going in at the same time as them because we're giving the starter a break.
Right.
You know what I mean? And my mind's in different places. You know, my mind's, especially in Boston, you know, when you're taking 800 milligrams of oxys a day, you know, it's 800 milligrams of oxys. And then
you're trying to kill yourself, right?
And then having to perform at that level.
Yeah.
You know.
So what happened during this game? Did you go outside and met your dealer?
Oh gosh, I've met him a few times. Yeah. I mean, that was like that. And again, in the world of opiates, that's common practice. Like, if I talk to another person who's been addicted to heroin or perks or anything like that, they'd be like, yeah, no doubt. Like, of course you met him. You know, of course, there's going to be those moments where they're stuck in traffic and they can't get there an hour and a half early than they should have been there.
This was like right before the game, so you're outside in your uniform.
I'm in my warm-ups. I'm in my uniform. You know, checking my phone. Run down to the players' lot, grab it, throw them in my mouth, crunch, and then I go. I mean, but that's normal.
Wow. Man, so now, okay, you did that. You're thrown in the starting lineup. You guys, you know, you had a 4-3 record.
Yep.
And then you actually had good games while you were on drugs.
Yeah, mess. As messy as you can get.
So no, the coaches, nobody's seen that you were...
You know, listen, because
you had to look fucked up and your eyes had to look crazy.
Listen, I look at it now. Like, it's tough for me to see my pictures with the Celtics.
Yeah.
Like, you walk into my house, you will have no idea that there's a basketball player that lives there. I don't have one uniform. I don't have one picture. Like, you would never know that I played high school, college, or in the NBA. You won't find the uniform up. Like, it just wasn't, it didn't.
Because the way your parents looked, it's like...
Nah, so, I think I just wasn't, I'm not that proud of it. Because I struggled so much with it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, especially the NBA, right? Like, I look back at the NBA's torture to me. Like, anybody, I was walking the streets from Penn Station here, you know, and I'm passing dudes who are like me. Mm-hmm. I'm passing dudes who are struggling on the street corner. You know, they can't even keep their neck up.
Yeah.
And, like, that's how I was. playing in the NBA.
So I know that now a lot of coaches know, you hear players say that coaches knew that they smoked weed or, whatever. No coaches knew that you were like so high?
I don't know.
To recognize that?
That's a different type of high now. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing when, you can smell a little bud or you see a little bloodshot eyes. It's another thing to be in that world of opiates. And to their credit, like how many people did they know like me? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It's not like they were seeing people, struggling with that amount of opiate addiction. Right. So
yeah, because you probably cocaine or maybe weed, right?
Right. Like they couldn't put a finger on it. I'm sure I missed flights. Listen, I was living, and me and my wife, we talk about this. I was playing for the Boston Celtics, living in the worst neighborhood in Fall River, Massachusetts.
While playing for the Celtics?
While playing for the Celtics, living in the worst neighborhood in Fall River. And I say worse, I don't want to offend anybody. It's just a tough neighborhood, man. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of stuff going on around there.
Weird, because when you're in the league, you figure that you're supposed to be living in someplace real nice, right? Condo, house.
I'm in a small apartment with my wife, with our children, living on the second floor with my in-laws. And, it was, you look back now and you're like, how did we not pick up on that? Yeah. How did we not get that? Like,
especially with Len Bias, right? This is way before, Len Bias before that in Boston, figured that maybe they would be a little, and for them to even take you in, knowing that they had a Len Bias situation, right?
Yeah.
And then knowing that you still had your, issues.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Dan Issel, I don't know if I would even be in the NBA if it wasn't for Dan Issel. And, Dan Issel, Hall of Famer, legend, general manager for the Nuggets. I had a personal touch, whether it was his childhood, his father, was someone. And he said, I'm going to give you a shot. And again, I didn't understand the work I had to put in order to stay away. Like I didn't understand the commitment. John Lucas.
I was going to talk about John Lucas because that's another coach that took in a lot of players.
Yeah, well, John Lucas was my assistant coach for the Nuggets. So, like, I landed in a situation.
So you were there early with him, right?
With John Lucas. And John Lucas...
Because he had his own issues, am I right?
Yeah. And he's been sober for 40 years.
Yeah.
But he tried to get me to go to meetings. And he'd be like, hey, I'm going to a meeting. You want to come? Nah, I'm good. It was attraction, not promotion for him. Where... kind of at Fresno, I had a coach, John Welch, who he coached with the Clippers for a while. He dragged me, like, we're going. Right. John Lucas was more like attraction, like, get attracted to this, man. Like, see where I'm going? I'm going to put an hour worth of work in that building right there. Come follow me, get the relief you need, and let's get out of here. And I wasn't ready for that. It takes work. It takes work in anything, right? Like, And that's what I've been able to do. If the one thing that I've gotten out of that early, I was in the NBA for a cup of water, man. Like it was 2 years, right? And I learned how hard you had to work, like in order to be successful. And that's the gift that basketball has given me, is I know what it takes to get to those places, and I applied that into my recovery. Right.
Now the Celtics released you got a knee injury, and it was like 70 games you ended together. Yeah. Right. So overall, you averaged 3.2, 2.4 assists. Did you realize that your career was over after that when they released it?
No, I realized it was starting to go because, and again, I'm very careful saying this because it's all what I remember. I remember playing in the NBA Summer League, and Frank Williams was the point guard for the New York Knicks at the time. I was having a good summer league. I was playing for the Dallas Mavericks. And I ran out. I ran out of what I needed. And there was no way I was going to finish that summer league like that. So my knee, every basketball player's knee has problems. You know, anytime you put a basketball's knee underneath the camera, you're going to see damage. Right. So it was kind of my way of running. And I walked away from the NBA Summer League that year that was played in Boston. And that's when things started to get in the way. That's when, you know, I knew that I was getting further away from doing this. And that's when I went overseas.
That's when you played in a professional league. You took your family over there?
Yeah.
And is it true you smuggled some oxy?
Oh, yeah,
in
no doubt. Luggage? Yeah, of course. You can't. Again, that world is, you know, anybody who Xanax, Adderall, Percocets, Vicodin, syrup, like you got to take it with you. Right. I mean, if you don't take it with you, you better have doctors on the back end waiting for you.
Right. If somebody over there.
Somebody's got to be there to for that landing, you know. And I wasn't going over there to get sober. Right. I was going over there to hoop. Right. And I needed to take it with me. And, you know, so I did a lot of traveling in this world, you know, in that capacity because I had no choice at the time.
Then when you ran out, you made sure you found somebody, tried to hit the streets, find somebody else. You didn't find any oxy?
No. You know, there's one thing about that game, right? Like it's universal. Like you don't have to speak Italian. You know, you don't have to speak Italian.
It's the same language, no matter where you go.
It's the same language. It's the same hustle. It's the same dudes. It's the same, you know, it's the look. And it's when I started getting introduced to heroin.
That's when he brought the heroin to you.
Yeah.
How was
heroin's? I mean, listen, they're all nasty.
You know when I'm asking like how was that, but what? It sounds crazy question, right? How was that?
There's levels.
How was it like to now you get, because you're going to the next level now. Now you had to shoot up now.
No. This time in the beginning of my heroin use is mostly snorting.
Okay.
Snorting.
I guess people look at it as once you say heroin, it's like, I forget that you could actually.
Yeah, you can snort it, you can cook it. Depends.
That's right.
Which kind you get. I mean, if you're on the West Coast, it's tar. You have to cook it. And, like it's just.
So you never shot anything? You never?
Oh no, I shot it.
You did?
Oh hell yeah, yeah. No. I mean,
while you were overseas now, after you snorted?
I never shot when I was in foreign countries. I would just snort it or smoke it.
Right.
But when I was in the States, I always shot it.
Okay, for the next 6 years, you spent up all your basketball earnings. It's diminished, it's gone. Everything is gone. What are you doing now?
I'm a street junkie, man. I walk up and down, you know, the streets in my hometown.
So you just straight left your family?
No, they were there. They were there. But that's where I was living. I was living in a town that, you know, heroin's not hustled. So I had to go every day to where I could get it. And, you know, there's no shame in it. You know, like it gets to the point where it's either collecting cans, smoking poke-outs, taking cigarettes out of ashtrays, you know, bouncing checks and stealing from people. That was a luxury.
You're taking from your kids, the PlayStations, everything.
You know, sadly, you know, whoever I could.
So what would you tell your kids at this moment? You're selling their PlayStation.
They were too young
to know that.
Yeah, they were too young. They were too young to really feel that type of pain. But it was, you know, you hurt the people that love you, man, and those typically are the people that you take from. You know, are the people who love you because they see how sick you are, and they see how, you know, how sad. Like I put it like this. You know, when you wake up every single day and you take a chance of dying, it's become major problems. Like this dude's, every single day you wake up and you put that thing in your arm you might not live.
You might not live. And you know it too.
No doubt.
Okay, so you're playing professionally in Poland, Turkey, China, Germany, Iran. That didn't last long was it because you couldn't get the drugs, or you was a performer? Now you know that.
Yeah, it wasn't sustainable. Like, because the hustle is different, right? Like I was doing coke and heroin in Iran. You know, like the dude.
That's kind of weird to hear. Like
the dude that I was getting it from, the alcohol and the drugs, he would only meet me at like 3, 4 in the morning. Like that was the only time he was coming out to give it.
Why is that?
Just less traffic, I guess. I guess he was worried, of getting caught. I mean, you get caught in Iran, that's a whole different.
That's like a death penalty.
Yeah, it's a different animal. So, China, Italy, Turkey, Iran, Poland, I lasted a minute, man. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do it. The only way I could last is if I found it. That's it. And I had some monster games. Like I played in China. I think I had 60, 64, 66.
Dropped 64?
In a game in China. Like,
while you were high?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. I was smoking cigarettes at halftime. I mean, that's, like, it's a different animal. I mean, you go out with your teammates, you drink, you smoke. Chinese, like you play in China, man, they're smoking inside that arena.
Yeah.
It's like 1930 there.
Yeah. Back in the days here, like in the 60s, they was smoking.
Yeah. No, they're smoking in the arena. Like by the end of the game, your whole ceiling of your arena is covered with smoke.
So were you getting high in halftime then?
Oh, God, yeah. Whenever I had to. Yeah. Whenever I had an opportunity. And obviously it depends, right? It depends how your body's responding. Yeah. If my body was feeling okay, no, I'm not going to mess with that. But if I felt that I needed it, absolutely.
How did you end up in Bismarck, North Dakota?
Oh, brutal. It was so bad, man. Like, it was one of the toughest times of my life. I went out there, and it was an opportunity. Like, that was a real opportunity. And I wasn't. I was just faking it.
What made you go there, though?
CBA. Like, it was get out there, sign a contract, get back in front of the NBA scouts, maybe grab a couple of 10-day contracts, see what you can do. Right. But that was all smoke and mirrors for me. It was like, it allowed, I shouldn't say it allowed, but it kept people at their distance because they were like, he's chasing the Bismarck, North Dakota to hoop, so he must be doing okay. And I was as sick as I've ever been.
Taking little Chris to school, passed out in a car.
So little Chris, he, it's funny. Christopher, I never really sat down with Chris and asked him what he remembers. Never sat down with Sammy and like, let's talk about what you remember. And to be quite honest with you, I don't even know if it's necessary or the right thing to do.
Well, they know the stories now.
But they know the stories. Yeah. And Unguarded, it changed our lives. Like that 30 for 30 changed our lives. And, recovery, addiction, it's in the fabric of our family. But I'll tell you, like, what they've been able to witness the last 14 years as my children and the recovery that has changed the trajectory of our life has been, it's just remarkable. And I hate the fact that I put them through it. Like people say to me all the time, you're 14 years sober. You have a foundation that's helped thousands. You have a wellness center that is changing people's lives. You speak 200 times a year. What would you change? And if I could change anything, I would erase their memory. And I probably should ask them that. But I'm saying this off between you and me. I probably erase their memory. Like if I had a superpower, Like, please, like, I don't want them remembering that.
That.
Yeah,
Right.
whatever it is.
Right. Yeah.
But then your children get older, and it shaped them. It kind of molded them
To what they are, what you went through today. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if I hit the erase button, who do they become?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Who do you become now?
No doubt.
Do you help out 1,000 people now?
Yeah, no doubt.
Thousands of people now?
Yeah.
Might not, right?
Absolutely.
So was that your first arrest when they came? Was that your first arrest?
My first arrest was I was
The car when you slept in the car.
in Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah, when I overdosed in the drive-thru. See, the media did me kind of dirty, and not that you can clean it up, but like they said, I crashed into a donut shop.
Right.
You know, I was in the drive-thru. It was early in the morning. I just shot up. I got in the drive-thru, boom, and I went down. And you know, now sadly, overdosing is common. Like that's all you hear about. In 2004, that's not what you heard about.
That was an overdose?
Yeah, that was an overdose. Primarily, all my arrests were due to overdose.
Wow. Man. So now, crystal meth. What the hell is that? Crystal meth.
Crystal meth is a monster.
That's not the next level.
They're all up there in the same game.
The same game?
Yeah.
You started taking that.
Briefly, you can't take crystal. Like for me, it's what brought me to my. Nothing brought me down faster. You know, like there's no drug that will bring you to a place of complete despair faster than that drug, because of the torture of sleep deprivation and paranoia and
Because you were on the run for 4 days thinking somebody was...
hallucinations. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, it's bad. I mean, listen, there's people with, you know, that smoke crack go through it.
It's the same thing, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But this one just hit you differently now because you're on the run thinking that somebody's chasing you. You left your kids.
My kids were at the airport and I got arrested. Yeah. I tried to pull it together. And you know, like, it's kind of a very sad moment in my life, and it's still very sad. You know, they were coming out to see me in California, and I was arrested in Modesto. I didn't get them at the airport. And, you know, it's crazy how life changes you. Like, there was a time in my life I was so sad that they remembered that. And then all of a sudden, I am so grateful I never made it. Like, if I made that, if I didn't get pulled over and they jumped in my car, like,
Well, yeah, you don't know what. Right.
it would have been, like, they would have seen me in a situation that no kid deserves to see.
Right. Paramedics said when you overdosed, you were dead for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Did that not even wake you up at that point, even to say, you know what?
You know, as I said, you chase death for that feeling, you know? You take a chance of dying.
You were still chasing death after that?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. I mean, I was, listen, I could overdose at 9 o'clock in the morning. I want to get high at 9 o'clock at night. You know, it's just depending how long you were in jail for or how long they kept you in the hospital. You know, until you're ready to go through the medical withdrawal detox process, you're gonna get high. I mean, that's just for me.
So were you telling yourself that even like when your wife she went into labor, you left the rehab right on foot? There wasn't a point where you were telling yourself like, you know, because you were chasing death, but you never told yourself like, nah, I have to.
Oh God, yeah, every night. Listen, every night I went to bed so sad and so ashamed and so stressed out of who I was. And every night I would say to myself, tomorrow's gonna be different. Tomorrow's gonna be different. And that turned into, you know, a decade of tomorrow being different. But yeah, man, it's a hard world to get out of. You know, and I tell this to parents all the time, like, you know, I have parents who trust in me, in my staff, and drop their children, their loved ones off at my center. Heroin holds you. It doesn't let go of you quick, you know? And that's why a lot of people die from it, you know? It typically it holds on to you for a while.
And you were putting your wife through it. She was holding on, right?
Yeah.
After you went to see her have the third child labor,
Yeah.
you went to the store, 2 kids, got more alcohol.
Yeah.
And your wife told you, listen, go back to rehab, get treatment, or don't come back.
Yeah. Listen, people are going to identify with this. Vodka shuts your noise off. Vodka helps you forget. And once I ran out of steam for heroin, I turned to vodka. And vodka has a horrible way of just shutting things down. Like just kind of buttoning up, like just hardening you. Like it just, I drank it to hurt myself. I didn't drink vodka, like I drank it to hurt myself. Like, you know, I drank cheap pints of vodka that I kept in little water bottles to pretend like it was water. And I would just sip it all day long. And, you know, because I didn't have the steam nor the resources to stay in that heroin game. And I overdosed and I went away to treatment. I was 32 and I got the phone call that Heather's going into labor. And I wanted to be a sober father and witness that. Christopher and Samantha, I had drugs in my system. Like I just wanted to be there. Like this is what a birth feels like. Like this is how I'm supposed to be.
Right.
And they tried to tell me not to. Now, like around here on these streets is Daytop Samaritan. Like the Samaritan house. Like you see all the, that's where I was. I was in Daytop Samaritan. And, you know, I had 96 men, mostly pre-release, mostly there on, you know, some type of charges.
Down the block from a liquor store.
You know, and yeah, no, but that's what it was. But I really believed that I could be there for Heather that night. And you know, I wasn't ready for the moment. And, you know, like you walk into a hospital and you see your children and you see this newborn baby coming into this world. And that baby is like, he's counting on me. And I'm not ready.
You're not ready for it. When you thought you would be ready.
Yeah, you know, like I wasn't ready, man. I was 30-something days sober. So I had to look at little Drew and be like, you know, sadly, and I say this, and you know, there was times I probably said to myself, I wish they had a different dad.
Yeah. Yeah, because your counselor told you that one of the craziest things that you ever done in life, and tell them that you're not coming back.
Yeah. He told me to play dead.
Play dead.
Yeah. He said, just disappear, man. Like Heather's a beautiful woman, man. She's smart. She comes from an amazing family. And she chose me. And I went to bed most nights thinking, you know, I went to bed every night saying she could do better than me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was hard.
So you didn't see your family for nearly a year.
Yeah.
You remained in a rehab.
Yep.
After complete intensive rehab, you ended up back on drugs again?
No.
No, you let it go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been sober
You said
since
that
June.
was it. That was the last time.
Last time, August 1st, 2008.
Any thoughts of like going back to coaching football now? I mean basketball?
No. Football, believe it or not, the world I live in, I have more contact with football than I do basketball.
Really?
Yeah. Most of my speaking engagements, you know, Alabama, Texas A&M, Florida, Florida State, Ohio State. I've done them all, LSU. NFL, like I did the Philadelphia Eagles in training camp this year. Most of my work is centered around football.
But did you launch the Hoop Dreams?
Hoop Dreams is my first job. I was sitting in a meeting and my license got taken away. So in 2009, I lost my license for 2 years. And a guy in the meeting was a high school, middle school principal, and he said, Chris, I'm going to give you the keys. I want you to take this opportunity, meet my friend. She's going to open up the doors for you, and you're going to teach kids how to play basketball because that's what you know how to do for now. And I walked into that gym, and I started teaching kids how to play hoop. And while I was in that gym, John Hawk, ESPN showed up. And ESPN started filming me working with kids.
Right. So when you opened the center, after this, was that when Unguarded came?
Unguarded
came after that?
Yeah, no, Unguarded came before that.
Before that?
Yeah, so Unguarded, what's crazy is I'm 14 years sober, and someone on the street asked me, he was like, Unguarded, how many years ago was that? And I was like, 5-6 years ago. And then the person I was with said, Chris, that was like 11 years ago. So it's been a minute, it's been 11 years. I opened up my wellness center at 10 years sober. So I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary for Herren Wellness.
It was nominated for 2 Emmys. I was on the sports documentary. I was down in editing. I watched it. It's made me reach out to you. Yeah. I felt like I had to talk to this guy. Yeah. Because the story was interesting. You hear a lot of players, like, you don't hear them actually speaking how you speak about, their addiction, their demon. There's very few that really come out and want to talk about it publicly, in the document.
It's a lonely world, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I, honest to God, I never lost sight of the mission, right? Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, I can sit here, I can do this interview, and I never, and whether this is used for the interview or not, like, I'm not that guy who says, hey, can you send me the questions? Like, you know what I mean? Like, give me a vibe of what you're going to talk about. Right. Like, I walked into this blind, like, let's do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I could sit here and say, I'm 14 years sober, I have this, that, and the other. I don't want to go back to that world.
And you had it all.
You know?
Right in your hand.
Yeah, but see, I have more today than I had then.
Right.
It's not even close.
Right. Nice.
It's not even close. Like, what I have today of what I had back then, it's not even close, man. It's not even in the same game.
Definitely.
But what I'm saying is, a lot of people don't want to go back. And if we hit somebody with this on social media, someone clicks a link and says, damn, like, that's cold. Like, I feel that. Yeah. Like, that's what this is about. Yeah. Like, I'm speaking my truth, my guts, because someone else.
And I know you travel, you travel the country, you speak to all the kids, high schools, even when last time you came here. How's that going for you, speaking to high school kids? I
love it, man. It's my purpose, right? Like, I'll get phone calls to do corporate events, colleges, NFL, NBA teams. High school trumps them all.
You ever go back to the Celtics?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I've been back. The Celtics have gone above and beyond for me. Right. What the Boston Celtics have done for me since I got sober is, I could never be more thankful, grateful. Honestly, what's crazy is, if I really think about it, and I really haven't thought about it until you asked that, they've been probably the most receptive and welcoming out of anything in my life. Like, professionally, like Fresno State, BC, Celtics, Denver. Like, the Celtics front office, their staff, they said, come in. Like, I did some games on TV. They honored me, for my foundation. Yeah, man, the Celtics, they treated me like I was one of their own.
Any other players that do you get to speak to the young players coming in that, might have issues or, even if they don't have issues, before that even happens, you speak to them too?
Anonymity plays a big part of this, right? So, but hundreds of players, over the last 14 years of phone calls of, this one's struggling, that one's struggling. Can you help this? What do you think? And the reality is I'll walk into a college football team and there's 90 dudes in there. And there's a whole bunch of kids that are bringing baggage into that room. You know what I mean? Like someone wants to hit their race button. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, if I could be an example of recovery and coming out of this and if they feel like they can call and they can lean on me a little bit or lean into me, that's what it's all about.
One thing about drugs, it doesn't care what color you are.
No.
What race you are.
Especially today, man.
It doesn't care.
Like it is in every fabric.
That's right. You
know what I mean? Like those days of, and again, in 2004, I didn't know anybody. Like honestly, and all of a sudden in 2006, I woke up and I had kids I grew up with doing it. But like early, I didn't know anybody. And it was just old dudes who used to walk kind of the track on the street. Right. And like you pull off, they'd jump in and, they'd take you to the guy. That was my only way of getting it, how I knew how to get it. And I'm a Denver Nugget. I'm a Boston Celtic picking these dudes up, let's go. But today it's in every neighborhood, man. There's not a school, there's not a city, there's not a town that this has not rippled into.
Give a message to, before we leave, to young Chris Herren. There's a lot of young Chris Herrens out there.
So the message to young Chris Herren, I'll tell you this. At my center, I have an assignment, and it's called Note to Self. And Gayle King, Charlie Rose, The Morning Show, whatever their show's called, asked me to do it. And they said, Chris, you're going to write a note to yourself and you're going to keep it at 500 words. And we're going to come and we're going to film you and you're going to read it. And I've done a book, 2 books, documentaries. I said, 500 words, come on, man. Like I'll be done by the time we get off the phone call. You know what I mean? It was the hardest 500 words of my life. To talk to that boy in a bunk bed, I can't change anything that happened to me now. Right. I can just talk him. I can guide him through the storms, but there's gonna be storms. And when you start talking to yourself the way you want it to be talked to, you look at it a little differently, man. You heal a little faster. You recover a little quicker. So, that's the curse of recovery is you get to know yourself. And that's the gift too.
That's the gift right there.
It's both.
Get to know yourself.
You get to know who you are.
What do you think would be the worst drug ever you used?
I mean, anything that can kill you, right? This is what it comes down to. But the misconception about drugs, right, is, and, Vlad, like you guys can do your own research, but I believe the national average right now is 78% of the people who are sitting in treatment centers are sitting there because of alcohol. 78%. So almost 8 out of 10 people who were left their family, packed a bag, went away, is alcohol.
So is that the real gateway drug then?
I mean, that's the one. That's the one. I'll say this. That's the one that walks you slow.
Walks you slow.
Alcohol walks you slow. And then what alcohol does to you, which is the saddest thing. Alcohol wakes you up 40, 50, 60. And one day you look at it and say, why did I wait so long for this? And you don't know how much time left. You know, alcohol, it drags you. I tell people all the time, like I shot heroin, I had no choice. I was either going to get sober or I was going to die.
Right.
You know, so getting sober at 32,
Yeah.
like getting sober at 32, you know what that did for me and for my kids? You know, like I'm so thankful, like I'm not, 50.
Yeah.
You know, and
Trying to get sober.
And dragging them through that.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what the alcohol would have done.
Yeah.
So the sobriety coins
Man, and everything.
means everything, way more than those NBA trophies would have meant. And
Come on, man. Those things are magical, you know? Sobriety coins, chips, medallions, whatever you want to call them. You can't buy them. You know? You can't buy that.
you can't lie to yourself, too, with it.
No, gosh, no. But you can't buy that stuff. I've seen a lot of wealthy, successful people try to navigate their way around this, and you can't. You got to walk through it.
Chris, man, appreciate you, man.
Yeah, no doubt,
Thank
brother.
you, man.
Yeah.